Well, another week. Got some more NHL updates, and I think we'll be saying drop the puck January 13th. It's starting to sound closer to being reality, and it's definitely been a lot of ups and downs of emotions after when the Stanley Cup was awarded in late September to finally conclude the 2019-20 season. However, in this video, let's break down a little more on the proposed divisions. Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel and just making videos talking about NHL updates and speculating what I've been hearing. Well, if it was a week and a half ago and I was making a video, things were sounding pessimistic at the time and throwing out an idea that maybe the 2020-21 season might be cancelled altogether, and it almost felt like a lockout is inevitable, even though the CBA technically hasn't been expired. I mean, you called last summer, it actually got extended until 2026. However, COVID-19 happened and started messing things up in everybody's lives and everyone's mental health, including the NHL's finances. And it seems like that the NHL League and the Players Association, they've kind of pushed the money off to the side. They seem to be agreeing on everything else. They still got to work out on how many games, and it keeps sounding like 56 games is going to be the number of games that will be imposed the 2020-21 season, and hope to have, puck drop on January 13th. There's still a lot of logistics to figure out on a modified bubble, or how fans, if there are going to be fans in attendance. I mean, it's still, at least locally here in Calgary and Alberta, I mean, it's not going to happen anytime soon with the stronger restrictions coming into play. But maybe in some jurisdictions, I mean, the big sticking points when it came to the finances is that the league revenues obviously going to drop when you don't have fans in attendance. And you've been hearing that the reverse retro jerseys have been selling like hotcakes, they said, but it's still not going to make up the lost revenue. But there was, players already agreed to defer their salaries, and then it was come down to the escrow, and apparently there were some owners that wanted to just, said they didn't read the agreement, and some were thinking they were better off just not playing, but it would definitely be financial suicide. I think they finally looked on that, so it's nice to know that, they have to try to weather the storm and keep pressing on, as the other leagues have done. I know that at least the NFL, they've been soldiering on, but I think the mistake the NFL made was not give himself a buffer, because if there's been outbreaks, you have to reschedule games. The NBA, they're about to start, but there's been cases happen, just the nature of the beast with this virus. But the NBA released partial schedules so they can get their season in. The Major League Baseball, they managed to get their season in and the World Series in, but I know the NHL is still being careful on how to schedule it. I mean, they're still figuring out the division, and we'll look at the proposed divisions, and there's some teams that I'm going to say they're going to get a little screwed with it, and we can debate on which proposed division is the toughest, looking at, based on expectations of each team. But, it's definitely still encouraging. We're going to have hockey again, but, they're going to have partial schedules and have that buffer in, and I think the NHL is being conscious of that they have to give themselves a 2-week buffer, so that in the event that there's any outbreaks, that games have to be postponed, that they can reschedule it later without pushing back the playoffs. You also know what potentially with the modified bubble and the divisional realignment, including what I'm most excited for, the all-Canadian division. And it's only going to be this season, and I'm going to enjoy it. It could be, going back to the Major League Baseball, you might get like a, 3-game series, or maybe longer road trips where, let's say, for example, the Calgary Flames, they might spend a week out in Eastern Canada, get a couple games in with the Maple Leafs, Senators, and Canadians, and then maybe have a week off and come back home. But those are still going to be future videos, as I know. But let's take a look at some of these proposed divisions, and there's some teams that got to wonder, why are they there? I know you only got 31 teams, and you're never going to draw a perfect geographic scenario given where the teams are. There's a few that kind of question. I mean, the All Canadian division is pretty much a given. It has been confirmed by Gary Bettman because of the closure between the Canada-U.S. border, and I just love it just for I made my ranking video as a Calgary Flames fan anticipating a matchup. So the All Canadian division will have the Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, Winnipeg Jets, Edmonton Oilers, Calgary Flames, and Vancouver Canucks. All in the same division and only playing each other. Yes, please. I want some all Canadian hockey just for the season. Let's have some fun with it. But that was pretty much a given and always talked about. And, when I look at the strength of the group, just to kind of give the World Cup reference, I'm going to say it's kind of in the middle. Because there's, general consensus there is that, fans would say Toronto's probably the best team. And then you could probably say Calgary might be on the verge of breaking out. And you can't count Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl. And, even with Winnipeg, Montreal, and Ottawa, I think it's going to be a very, very close division. And just the natural rivalries that's going to ensue, it's going to be a close division. So that would be, that's confirmed, the All-Canadian division. However, then, let's just call this the Eastern division. Geographically, this will probably be the best traveled division because they all get to stay in their time zone. However, I think this is going to be the toughest division because you got the Boston Bruins, Buffalo Sabres, the New Jersey Devils, the New York Islanders, New York Rangers, Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Washington Capitals. To throw out another World Cup soccer reference, I think that's going to be the group of death. And I think the one team that's definitely going to say, oh man, are the Buffalo Sabres. Is they've made a lot of noise, including signing Taylor Hall in the free agent frenzy. But Buffalo is going to be definitely tough with the Pennsylvania teams. You got Washington. Boston still looks to be poised to still be a contender. Buffalo is finally trying to get into the playoffs for the first time in a decade. So I'm going to say this is the toughest division. Now, I don't know if would you call this the South Central Division, because this is where you have teams kind of all over the place. Because this division will have the Carolina Hurricanes, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Detroit Red Wings, the Florida Panthers, the Minnesota Wild, the Nashville Predators, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. As, you can't really perfectly group a team in, there's some time zone changes, but there could be some that'll be in the Eastern time zone, some in the Central time zone. But I would say the one team that might have the toughest schedule or the toughest travel will definitely be the teams on the north end, like Detroit and Chicago, and then Florida and Tampa Bay. But there's one team that is missing in this North Central division that you have to wonder, why isn't this team in it? Well, let's get to the West Division, as the West Division would have the Anaheim Ducks, the Arizona Coyotes, the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, the Los Angeles Kings, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the San Jose Sharks, and the St. Louis Blues. I gotta wonder why the St. Louis Blues are in the so-called Western Pacific realigned division. I would almost think from the outside, although one team is going to get the short end of the stick. Because if you just looked at geographics, St. Louis or Minnesota would have probably the worst travel schedule. Guess where they are, playing out of time zone. Both teams are only an hour out of either the Eastern time zone or the Pacific time, actually they'd be 2 hours out because they're thinking Central time, so that they're only 1 hour ahead of Mountain time, but then there'll be 2 hours in the Pacific time zone. I almost think why St. Louis is in this one. I almost thought that I would swap Minnesota and St. Louis and have St. Louis play in the same division as Chicago, but there's also been the potential swap that they will look at maybe swapping Dallas into the Central Division and put Minnesota in this division, but St. Louis will still be in there. But it's just this is what's proposed right now. It's not set in stone. I think the two divisions that I think would be the most confident that will actually happen is the All-Canadian division, and then it's easy to put like everyone in the Eastern division based on the geographics, but I know that when you're looking just at what this proposed division, looking on the Sportsnet, I would definitely say the East Division will be the toughest division, where I think Buffalo would be the misfortune of being in that group, given the strength. And then when looking at the South Central, I'm going to call it South Central for the purposes of this video, that I would say the northern teams, Chicago and Detroit, and then Florida and Tampa Bay will have a longer travel schedule. But I'm going to say in the West Pacific Division, the St. Louis Blues will get the shorter end of the stick, as they're going to be spending a lot of time in California. And I mean, the Canadian Division, as exciting as it's going to be, it's still going to be a tough schedule for Canadian teams on both sides of where they are in the country, because of travel and playing out of the time zone. And obviously it's the nature of the beast, given how big and wide North America is. But I know that when it comes to strength, I mean, it'd be the East. The weakest division, I mean, you might have to say, is the West Pacific, with the California teams all rebuilding. However, that's the other thing that's still being debated. And I know the hockey guy also has talked about, the divisions and how are they going to figure out playoffs, because it's going to be really, really tough to judge teams based on worthiness, because they're only going to play exclusively in division. I mean, could some teams get fatter on weaker competition, but they get beaten up because they're playing tougher competition? I mean, it might almost think that just this season coming up, I know that this past season, I mean, they had to make the runway a little longer with the 2014 playoff, because you had 4 months between when the pause happened till when the play-ins and the round robin. But in this case, you can probably have, I know that the hockey guy proposed, and I haven't heard anything yet, but I almost have to think it would almost be unfair to just say top 4 in each division make the playoffs. And I don't think they figured out yet how they're going to seed it, if it's just going to be within division, because I would almost think, this is still my personal speculation, that the Canadian Division and that West Pacific will temporarily be in the Western Conference, and then the South Central and the East would be in the Eastern Conference, even though you got a couple teams that'll play out of conference either way. I mean, could we maybe see, depending on, obviously if fans are allowed in attendance, will they be back in home arenas, or could playoffs potentially be in hub cities again? But I almost have to think the NHL is going to have to, for this season, they're going to have to consider, doing another 2014 playoff, where you can maybe say the top 2 teams in each division, they can get a bye into the playoffs, and then have the play-in series for, where you can have 3 through 6, 4 through 5 in each division play. But this time you can maybe do a best of 3 instead of a best of 5, or maybe they'll do a round robin again for the top 2 and make it a best of 5 play-in, just to try to level up the playing field. I mean, you're never going to come up with a perfect scenario, but we're definitely not in perfect times. But it's still encouraging to know that the puck drop is sounding like they're looking at still January 13th, and that if that's the case, then training camps will begin like January 2nd. There's some word that they, going back to the 2014 playoff, that teams that weren't playing in the 2014 playoff would get a few more days of training camp. And I know the other things that I haven't heard, they're still going to have to work out, is how you're going to do farm teams. I mean, it's probably going to just be another case of having an expanded roster, but they'll have to put a provision in that you can have your active roster and have some kind of taxi squad where you can have these players with you at camp but not count against the cap. And then, because it's still going to be trickier, with the border closure and travel restrictions that's still in place right now, that, for example, with the Calgary Flames, it's not going to work how you're going to call someone up from Stockton and have them quarantined for 2 weeks. And then the other thing I still got to wonder is, let's say a Canadian team wants to make a trade with an American team. How's that going to still work? Or could they get an exemption that, this is still my personal speculation, I haven't heard anything on it, but what would happen, let's say the Calgary Flames wants to make a trade with, Colorado, and does that mean that the Colorado Avalanche would get the player right away, but then it wouldn't be fair for the Colorado player come to Calgary having to wait 2 weeks to quarantine before actually playing. But there's still a lot of logistics to still work out behind the scenes, and I will plan to make follow-up videos, but I am getting more and more excited for the NHL coming back. It finally seems like that both sides are kind of, I don't know if you could say agree to disagree on the financials. I mean, both sides are going to take a hit. I think they finally came to their senses that it would be economical suicide, as I'm going to say, if they cancel the season, because you have no revenues coming in, no TV deal, and then you lose relevancy, especially in fringer markets. I mean, Canada, we're all obsessed with hockey, and we'll come back. But with the sales of reverse retro jerseys, that should tell that fans are starting for hockey. And I know that another thing that's floated around is that there's going to be more ads on jerseys, hopefully not to the point where you see European jerseys where they look like race car drivers, but I think if they can just have one ad somewhere, either in a helmet or a jersey, and then they'll clarify that if you buy a jersey at the store, it won't have those ads on it, but the only way you have that ad is if you buy a game worn jersey, I meant to say, from player whoever. But those are other updates that we're also hearing, but it sounds like we're getting closer to dropping the puck somewhere, some way, which means that next month I'll get back to actually recapping games, and then now that there's a sound closer to start date coming up, I think we're going to start seeing, no pun intended, a second wave of transactions. Is that there's still a lot of players that haven't signed from free frenzy, and there might still be some trades that could happen between now and whenever the season starts. And it sounds like it would just go from training camp right into the season. So it sounds like there won't be any preseason as well to try to maximize games. But those are all my various updates, and I'm going to say I kind of question some division proposed alignments, especially where they put St. Louis. I know they're fumbling with Minnesota and Dallas potentially, but I mean, you're never going to come up with a perfect system right now under the circumstances. I just say, I want my hockey back, and yes, I'm going to enjoy the heck out of the Canadian division. It's not going to be a permanent thing. This is just going to be this season. I mean, travel is going to be expensive, and the players will definitely not going to like to do the travel, especially playing out of time zones even more regularly, and that's what Western Canadian teams already have, that disadvantage that teams over in the East Coast have. But what do you think of everything? The division lineup, prospect of hockey coming back January 13th now, and any ideas? What do you think? How they're going to solve? Where games can be played? Is it going to be home arenas, modified bubbles, combination, everything, and how they're going to figure out the playoff format, especially looking at how these divisions are made up, given strength of schedule, strength of division. When you're only playing your own division, that could they potentially do a 2014 playoff again next season? Because we're still doing the after effects of the global pandemic with COVID-19. So as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel. I also do have personal blogs, Attempt to Comedy, and I also do share my experience when I'm on the road at a sporting event, and I will plan to put a few more videos in my secondary playlist, because I have my winter break coming up in a week here, that I'll have more time to make videos, especially during the week, because what else I'm going to be doing, with stronger COVID lockdowns coming, where you try to continue to keep social distancing, and I'd say I love this creative outlet. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, what you need to do just to make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description for other ways you can follow me. So I'll say, go Flames go, and hopefully in a month we'll be seeing that for real with games. Games happening. Been craving for games to happen. I mean, since March the 9th, if I recall, that was the last time the Calgary Flames played a regular season game at the Scotiabank Saddledome. The Flames have only played 10 games up in Edmonton with the 4 games in the best of 5 series in the play-in series against the Winnipeg Jets, and then the 6 games against the Dallas Stars in the first round in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That was all the way back in late July and August. So I'm thinking I've only seen 10 Calgary Flames games in a span of 10 months. That will make any hockey fan crazy, would you agree? And I was a team that actually got to be in the play-in series and get the first round. Imagine if you're one of those fans of those 7 teams that didn't get to play. Oh, I really feel for you. But anyway, it would be great when hockey's back. So as I say, I'll see you in the next video.